Is there a housing crash happening? No, there's not a housing crash happening at all. Relax. Let me ease your fears. There is no housing crash. My name is Strager. I've been an agent for over 22 years. Primarily, I do luxury, land developments, everything in between, but primarily that's my wheelhouse. I sold hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate in my career. So let me tell you guys what's going on. I actually have an office here in Las Vegas, Nevada and San Diego, California. So I see both of those markets on the West Coast. I can't really speak to what's going on in the Midwest, South, or East, but I will tell you what's going on the West Coast. And here's my opinion. So I don't think there's a housing crisis or a housing crash or anything like that. I just think people are being a lot more hesitant. There's a lot of reluctancy in the market right now, a lot of uncertainty. I think uncertainty is the real key word here. And I think people are just waiting. You know, you are seeing prices reduce, but the reason why you're seeing prices reduce is because people need to sell for whatever that reason is, whether it's to move on to the next chapter of their life, whether it's just maybe they've outgrown the property, or maybe they need to size down. Could be any number of reasons. It doesn't mean that it's catastrophic because people are moving. But with that being said, there's a lot more sellers that have to move for whatever reason. They have to sell, and there's just less buyers in the market. That's it. Everybody's going to talk about interest rates and things like that. Probably 80% of my listings receive cash offers, so interest rates really don't affect that clientele in the luxury market. So you know, I think there's a lot of speculation you see in the news. And I think I just saw in the Review Journal, they said that here in Las Vegas, they said that there's a shortage of 30,000 homes. And that's what Zillow's saying. There's no shortage. If there was a shortage, then why would there be, you know, triple the inventory from last year? So what's happening right now is normal. You know, it could take a week to sell a property. It could take 6 months. When it comes to land, it could be 6 months. It could be a year to sell a piece of land. That's normal. That's normal in a regular housing market. For things to fly off the shelf in an hour or a day or 2 days or 3 days, I mean, that's great if it happens, but you know, that's not normal. It takes time to sell a property. You know, people now can be more selective. They have more choices. There's more inventory. I have a house right now. It's listed for about 1.3. Man, I think I had this thing listed for about 3.5 months. And I think I had at least 40 showings, and I would follow up on each showing and I would ask the agent, you know, what do you think? They would say, oh my God, the house is spectacular. And you can pretty much tell when an agent's just being nice and feeding you bullshit. But literally, this house is spectacular and it's priced right. It's priced about 400 grand below everything else in the community, but people just feel like they have more options and they want to see how low will the market go. And people, unfortunately, most people are like sheep. They don't move unless everybody else is moving. Nobody has foresight to say, this is a good deal, you need to jump on it. No, they see a good deal and they think it's going to be a better deal. But what ends up happening is the market starts to rise and they lose on that good deal. I'll give you another example. I remember back in the crash in 07, 08, there were condos here in Vegas for 30 grand. And I could have picked up a condo on the beach in Mission Beach for $200,000-$300,000. And I didn't do it. Now condos in Mission Beach, which is where I live partly now, are like 1.3 to 1.8. Whoever would have thought, right? Hindsight is always 2020. But one thing that is for sure, 1000% for sure, the cost of goods are not going down. Cars are continuing to go up. Gas is continuing to go up. Food is continuing to go up. Insurance has quadrupled and we all have to have insurance. Medical insurance is continuing to go up. All these things are continuing to go up. I don't think house prices are going to go back to 2020 prices, 2010, 2000, 1990, et cetera, et cetera. So if you do find a good deal, I strongly, and you love the property, whether it be for an investment purpose, development purpose, whether you plan on living in it, secondary, whatever it is, I suggest you buy it. Because if a seller is sitting on the market for 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, you know, maybe they are starting to get a little anxious, a little antsy, and it's time to make an offer and try and make it work. So is there a housing crash? No, there's no housing crash. The housing crash in 07, 08 is back when banks were giving NINA loans, which is no income, no assets. They wouldn't even verify your income or asset. They would only verify that you had over a 700 credit score. If you had over a 700 credit score, You could literally lie about everything else on your page, on your information on how much you made, and they wouldn't even verify where you work. They just gave you a loan. And what happened was all these people were getting loans for properties that they just couldn't afford. And so, all these banks shut down. Then we had short sales and foreclosures. It was a completely different world. Now banks are a lot more stringent. They're a lot more strict in what they're doing. And it's a completely different market. So no, there is not a housing crash. I don't foresee a housing crash coming. Who knows though? I'm not the end all be all. I'm only one guy who lives in Vegas and San Diego, but I can tell you right now, there absolutely isn't a housing crash. The housing market will continue to go up and down, but it'll continue to go up and down on an upward trajectory. It's not going to go up and down on a parallel trajectory. So kind of think about that properties are always going to go up and down, because if they just went straight up, like a kind of like a hockey stick, then nobody would ever be able to afford a property. So hope this helps everyone. Hope this alleviates everyone's concerns. And don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you on the next one.